A lot of people regard Captain America Civil War as one of the best comic book movies ever made. And yeah, they're kinda right. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam and welcome to my review for Captain America the Winter Soldier. This movie was directed by the Russo brothers, it was released in 2014, and it stars Chris Evans reprising his role as Captain America, as well as Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson reprising their roles as Black Widow and Nick Fury respectively, with some newcomers including Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce, and so on. And it's pretty safe to say that Captain America the Winter Soldier provided the template for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward into Infinity War. And speaking of Infinity War, yes, I did fail in reviewing every MCU movie that I had not reviewed yet, leading up to Avengers Infinity War. Thank you, college final exams, for that. However, I did review Infinity War. It was amazing. That review is on my channel now. I'll put a link in the description below if you'd like to check that out. But I really wanted to finish up this series because I love the MCU so very much and figured, why the hell not? So like I said in my intro, Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 were not necessarily the worst comic book movies ever made. By a country mile, they were not. They just kind of left the fans really cold. Considering the fact that the Avengers was so amazing, Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 just felt like steps down. We all were hoping and praying for a miracle, and Marvel Studios stepped right in and said, hello, we would like to introduce you to Anthony and Joe Russo. And we all collectively were like, the directors of You, Me, and Dupree? Seriously? I mean, we all scoffed at Heath Ledger's Joker at first, but seriously? I mean, come on. However, we all saw Captain America, and we all collectively had to eat our hats, because Captain America the Winter Soldier is not only one of the best movies in the MCU, but probably one of the best comic book movies ever made. It was widely regarded by both critics and audiences. Oh yeah, and I loved the movie too. We pick up Captain America not in New York fighting aliens and not fighting with the Avengers. He's living in present-day Washington, D.C., and when he's not trying to figure out the complexities of Star Wars and Nirvana, he's trying to hold on to whatever pieces of his old life that he can. He's working for S.H.I.E.L.D., so he's in battle. He makes friends with a man named Sam, played by Anthony Mackie, Falcon in the later MCU movies. And he still sees Peggy Carter, who is still played by Haley Atwell, who is pretty much on her deathbed at this point. This is all compounded by the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing some, let's just say, shady practices. We don't doubt that Nick Fury is a good guy, because he clearly is a good guy, but he's just doing some things that he calls protection that we all might call surveillance. And just when you think this couldn't get any worse, the Winter Soldier shows up, played by Sebastian Stan, who is much more than meets the eye. And S.H.I.E.L.D. is as well. Just like in my Avengers Infinity War review, I'm going to talk about this movie in a spoiler-free sense and a spoiler-filled sense, because honestly, the movie's 4 years old, and really a lot of you have probably already seen this and you want me to get to the juicy stuff, so I'm just going to touch on what I liked spoiler-free, and then what I liked in the spoiler-filled section as well. I will give you all plenty of warning if you guys haven't seen the movie yet, but seriously, go out of your way to see this movie because it is really, really good. Firstly, I loved Captain America, as I always do, but Chris Evans really does personify this role. Some people say, oh, Christopher Reeve is Superman to me. Chris Evans is Captain America to me. I honestly can't envision anyone else playing this role. In a story like this, you could definitely see the screenwriters trying to do the fish out of water story, like him trying to figure out like, ooh, what does this thing do? But he's kind of trying to take everything in stride. And I really did like that. He has a great scene with Sam in like the first few minutes where where Sam asks the captain, hey, what's everything like now? And Cap is like, oh yeah, everything's much better now. The food is much better. We always used to boil everything. You know, having no polio is nice. The internet, so helpful. I wholeheartedly agree. Just don't go on Twitter. He also kicks a lot of ass. In the first Avenger, one of my big complaints was that the action just looked a little too fake for my liking. In this movie, it looks so much better. In terms of how it's filmed, is a bit of a different story. It's a little bit too shaky cammy for me. The Russo brothers filming action would get better, but for now, they're definitely in the test phase. But one of my favorite fights is on the ship when Captain America is fighting this French mercenary guy, and the French guy is like, and you call yourself a captain, put down that shield. And so then he puts down the shield, and then Cap just whoops ass without the shield. I love that. I love the spirit of that. Also, what I loved is Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. In the other movies that she was in, she was primarily just used as eye candy, which, hey, I'm all for that. But at a point, I was like, are you just going to have her there just to have a hot girl on screen, or is she going to serve a purpose? Well, she definitely served a purpose in this movie. I think that if we ever get a Black Widow standalone movie, then this is probably what it's going to be based on. I'm holding out hope for a Black Widow standalone movie, but for now, I'll just take what I can get with this, because she was really good. And I fully stand by this statement. This is the best performance of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. Up until that point, he had been kind of used as a bit of joke fodder, you know, I got my eye on you and all that. There's a lot of character depth to Nick Fury in this movie. There's this great conversation that he and Captain America have where Nick talks about how his grandfather would always walk to work, and how at first he was always very kind and polite to people, and the people were always polite back. However, over time, they got constantly meaner and meaner and meaner, as well as the streets. And Nick closed the story by saying that one day someone tried to rob his grandfather, and the guy was like, hey, what you got in that bag? And his grandfather was like, here, I'll show you. And then Nick was like, he opened it up, and he showed the robber a bunch of $1 bills and a loaded .22 Magnum. And then he closed this particular tangent by saying, my grandfather loved people, but he didn't trust them. You can understand at times why he is trying to increase the surveillance, but at the same time, you're like, what point does it infringe on the freedoms of the people? There's a very thin line between ensuring the freedoms of the people and the security of the nation. And sometimes it's not truly black and white. It's very much in the shades of gray. And that's one of the important factors and storylines of this movie. What is the difference? I'm going to end the spoiler-free part of the video here, because in order to talk about the Winter Soldier, I need to talk about the spoilers. So just leave the video now. Take knowledge in the fact that I'm going to give this review an amazing. I love this movie. This is one of the MCU's best. And one of the reasons why I love Captain America so much is this movie. And just leave now if you don't want the movie spoiled for you. Because the spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. When the Winter Soldier initially appears, you're like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. You know, he catches Captain America's shield with one hand, and I'm like, well, okay, this villain's definitely better than Red Skull. However, you then learn that the Winter Soldier is actually Bucky Barnes. From the first movie, he originally died, right? Well, not quite. He was rescued by Hydra scientists. He had his brain thrown into a blender and reprogrammed to basically make the Winter Soldier, otherwise known as Hydra's own programmable assassin. When Cap initially finds out that the Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, he originally tries to save him, because throughout the movie he's trying to grasp onto every little bit of his old life that he can. And the biggest piece of that puzzle is Bucky, because when he was initially being bullied by literally everybody, Bucky was the one that was watching his back. And even when he's turned into the most evil person in the world, Cap is still like, there is still good in him, I have felt it. But as it turns out, the Winter Soldier is just the tip of the massive iceberg, because Cap then finds out that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually Hydra. Yeah, that big bad organization from the first movie, they didn't go away. They hid in plain sight under the name of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, Toby Jones from the last movie, he didn't die. Sure, his body died, but his conscience remains alive. And through his conscience, he basically organized a massive takeover, and the worst part about it is nobody knew it. And through his charge, Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford, they're going to launch these helicarriers and literally spy on everybody. Sure, we may grab some terrorists here and there, but at the same time, you could be grabbed. I could be grabbed. My next door neighbor could be grabbed. Again, walking that tightrope of freedom and security. Let's talk about Alexander Pierce, because this guy is really sinister. He's played by Robert Redford, who I believe doesn't get enough credit in terms of acting and or directing. Robert Redford is one of those guys that is one of the best actors that nobody ever talks about. And I feel his portrayal as Alexander Pierce is one of the more underrated villain performances in not just the MCU, but in comic book movies in general. Because just like Thanos, he believes that what he is doing is correct. He loves his country, but at the same time, in his mind, in order to protect it, he has to take these drastic measures. And there really is no sense in changing his mind. But guys, in the end, I really, really loved this movie. I love this movie to pieces. It has a deeper meaning, but it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of action, but it leaves you with a message afterwards. It pretty much is the Russo brothers' trademark style in terms of comic book movies. It's what they do in Civil War, and it's what they do with Infinity War. They give you a great movie filled with a ton of action and humor, but they leave you with a message afterwards. I think the Russo brothers are the best comic book movie directors going today, and this is the movie that symbolizes that statement in its purest form. Like I said at the end of my spoiler-free discussion, I'm going to give this movie an amazing, pretty predictable, I'm sure, but I don't care. This is my review. This movie is amazing. It's got great acting, it's got great action, great drama, great humor. It's definitely better than the first Captain America movie, although I do love the first Captain America movie. And really, Winter Soldier is only surpassed by Civil War in terms of the Captain America world. But guys, that's all for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for my review of Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers Age of Ultron. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and to also subscribe so that you never miss a new video. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, the links to all of my social media will be in the description below. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.